Squadron, man your planes! Stop that pigeon! Stop that pigeon!
Dastardly and Muttley, that was the one with all the wacky planes. I had a ball on that, designing ridiculous airplanes.
Jerry designed the majority of the airplanes in that show because that was a given. I mean, you know, you took one look at what he did on Wacky Races and you said, look, you just take these things and have a ball.
Oh, I was thinking of the World War I era planes because they were pretty funky looking, and just I'd take off from that and just do ridiculous planes, like I say, as many as 10 wings. Some would have 2, some would have 4. I'd have all these attachments that they would use to try to catch the pigeon. But it was basically World War I airplanes that was my kickoff point.
I know originally, when they did Dastardly, Muttley, and their flying machines, it wasn't Dastardly and Muttley. It was the Baron, and he had this dog that was not like Muttley, but it was kind of the same type of dog. He said he was a little more stupid. This Baron, he was like this German guy, and it was called Stop the Pigeon. And I guess because Dastardly and Muttley were so popular on Wacky Races that they spun them off into their own shows.
The Dastardly and Muttley characters were fleshed out a lot better in the Flying Machines series than they had been in the Wacky Races. They're definitely the same characters, but you know, with the Wacky Races, when you've got 11 different cars and probably 20-something different drivers, you know, there's only so much you can do, only so much you can write, only so much time you have to develop a character, and you really didn't need anything more than you had.
I think they certainly developed the relationship between Dastardly and Muttley more in the Flying Machines, but of course they got more screen time. Even though Dastardly and Muttley got the most screen time in Wacky Races, they got even more screen time when it was their own show.
One of the ways they fleshed out Muttley's personality is they had him medal hungry.
I suppose you want a medal for saving me. Oh, all right. Here's your medal.
And also, Muttley was able to fly now in this show. All he had to do was just twitch his tail, and then he could fly.
The two new characters that they created for Dastardly and Muttley were Zilly and Clunk.
Zilly was a nervous ninny who was always afraid of his own shadow.
He'd actually shoot down in his raincoat. He'd be like, Muttley, fetch him, and Muttley would begrudgingly go fetch him. Clunk was one of these Don Messick voice tricks where he used to do kind of vocal sound effects.
Plunk says we're ready to take off with another cartoon. Oh, dear.
The latest invention that Clunk came up with to try and get the message from that pigeon, you know, when it invariably it always failed. So as Dastardly's falling again down to earth, the telephone rings.
Hello?
You had the general phoning in all the time, always yelling at Dastardly for something. You never understood him, but you didn't care.
Hello? Oh, yes, our general. Yes, we're going to get the pigeon this time.
Why were they trying to stop the pigeon? Nobody knows. He's flying a mission. They never said what the mission was, but they had to stop him. From what, I don't know. But it was kind of had that World War I mentality to it, I guess.
Stop the pigeon! 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 Stop the pigeon!
Stop the Pigeon. I mean, it wasn't much of a song, but it definitely caught you. And even just mentioning it makes me think, well, now I'm going to drive home and hear that theme song in my head for the next 2 days.
Magnificent Muttley was a great little short. It sort of broke up the two Dastardly and Muttley cartoons by having these dream sequences.
Muttley's sleeping and, you know, Dastardly like screaming at him about, you know, wake up Muttley, you're dreaming again.
Wake up there, Muttley. You're dreaming again. You're not Robin Hood, and you're not Gunga Din.
Muttley would be having these big daydreams of what he thought he was or what he couldn't do. Dastardly putting to work mopping the floor, and he'd pretend he was a musketeer with it or something. And at the end, he'd be like jabbing Dastardly with the mop.
Muttley! Stop daydreaming and get going! Right.
When they came back to do Dastardly and Muttley, and say, okay, now you're wearing the flight goggles and you're you know, chasing a pigeon around. I think Muttley's reaction was like, you know, okay, and you know, didn't matter. You know, he was still working.
What did you say?